Oops.
I think we're live. God, this happens every time. We need to work on this. All right.
Glitches. Hello, and welcome to another episode of My Favorite Conservative. I am Edward.
And I am Andrea, but I am not conservative.
You're not?
I am not.
Huh.
But he is my favorite conservative.
Thank you.
You're welcome. A lot is happening in the world, including Israel declaring war after being attacked by Hamas. Now, that's a very new and fluid story, so we're going to hold off on commenting on it until we get a better picture. However, today we're going to stay in the U.S. because there was a huge story that unfolded this week in Washington. Edward, tell us what's going on.
I would say the biggest story of epic proportions is Kevin McCarthy being ousted as the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Now, I mean, while other speakers throughout history have, actually stepped down after their party loses power, McCarthy is the first to be ousted through a vote of the full House in the middle of a congressional term. So, yeah, it is historic. So,
wow.
Yeah, he was, if you remember, McCarthy was elected this past January. I mean, not that long ago.
No, it wasn't that long ago.
No, but it took 4 days and 15 ballots for him to secure the speakership. And
don't you think that was a sign? That was a little sign.
It's never a good sign. Yeah, it's like herding cats, right? They're everywhere. But the reason it did take so long is because a few members of what's known as the Freedom Caucus, which is a group of conservatives, I think there's about 50 of them now, that were convinced that McCarthy, or they weren't convinced, actually, that McCarthy would actually back a conservative agenda, of which he has said that he would, and they wanted some assurances that he would.
So how and why did he get kicked out?
Well, for him, unfortunately, one of their demands was that any single member of the House could offer what's called a privilege resolution declaring the office of Speaker vacant.
Okay.
Now, the word privileged is key in that because that refers that anything in the House that is determined to be privileged has precedence over regular House business, and it must, by their rules, be brought to a vote on the floor.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. He made it incredibly easy. In fact, he agreed to make it easy to get fired.
Yes.
So again, just want to make it clear for everybody and for myself. Nancy Pelosi never would have done something like this.
No.
Not in a million years.
As much as I disagree with the Democrat Party, they fall in line immediately. There are very few outliers. And when there are, in the past, they have had big majorities in Congress. So Nancy didn't need everybody all the time, although she did have a very slim majority the last time that she was Speaker of the House. And she held him in line. So, kudos to Nancy.
Don't hear me
saying that too often.
I know, but she knew how to do it.
Yeah.
So how did he, who are these people that got him fired?
Well, there was a group called the Gang of Eight.
Okay.
They always like gangs in the House and in the Senate. So and basically the Gang of Eight, there are 8 Republicans, along with all the House Democrats, voted to kick out McCarthy, which is quite ironic because the Gang of Eight was actually upset with McCarthy because he was negotiating with Democrats on a continuing resolution to fund the government for 45 days. He said that he would not work with the Democrats in their minds. And so he actually, the Gang of Eight actually teamed up with Democrats themselves.
Okay.
Kind of interesting. Yeah.
Okay. So that's why they said they were upset, but some of them had some very individual agendas. So who is the so-called Gang of Eight?
Well, I guess the unofficial leader is Matt Gaetz out of the Florida. And I was actually reading a great article by Jennifer Oliver O'Connell at redstate.com, really good writer there that really helped break it down. And she was talking about Matt Gaetz, and he's out of Pensacola, which is way up in the top part of the panhandle in Florida. Yeah. And he's kind of the bad boy of Congress because he never seems to get along with anybody. And I think everybody hates him. It's just some hate him a little bit less.
Well, I want to shout out to the Ruthless podcast because they posited this theory that Matt Gaetz was upset with McCarthy for not shutting down the investigation against him, against Matt.
Yeah, he has a few ethics investigations
issues.
against him that are ongoing, and I guess he wanted them gone. And whether there's any personal animus in there along with political, yeah, it's politics. Right?
Well, and he's also trying to make a name for himself because there are rumors that he will run for governor, correct?
Yeah, there's like Chuck Schumer, you don't want to get between Matt Gaetz and a camera. It's a very dangerous spot, right? Yeah, you'll get run over and
Okay.
Lord forbid.
And you know how I remember him? He just has this really big square head. Like he's got a big head.
He does.
That's how I remember Matt Gaetz.
But in Matt's corner though is he is supported, has the backing of Donald Trump. So if he does decide to run for governor, that's huge in Florida. No doubt about that. Yeah.
All right. Who's next in this gang of 8?
Well, you let's go to Colorado. We've got Ken Buck, who is getting the moniker the Liz Cheney of Colorado, which is not a good moniker to have if you want to go anywhere in Republican politics.
No, it's not. Even I know what that means. But for people outside the U.S. who might be watching or listening, what does it mean to be the Liz Cheney of Colorado?
Liz Cheney was a recent member of the House for a number of years who actually lost her reelection bid by the largest margin in U.S. history because all she would do is pretend to be a Republican and bash Republicans. So if you're in the self-bashing mode, you're a Liz Cheney Republican. So, the thing that upsets me with Ken Buck, though, is that recently, there's an impeachment inquiry going on in the House, and he has publicly come out many times and saying, I don't see enough evidence, when there are just mounds of evidence to at least open an inquiry. And for him to do that
whom?
Against Joe Biden.
Okay.
Yeah. And to do that against your own party when obviously he hasn't even followed the issue or something, because there are mounds of questions that need to be answered, and that's what an inquiry is for. So
all right. And who is number 3?
I think the third most egregious on this would be Matt Rosendale. He is out of Montana.
Okay.
And the problem with him that I have is that publicly he has said in the last midterms, when Republicans were supposed to win by a huge margin, and we only won by 5 votes, so only have a 5-seat majority, he actually prayed that the Republicans would not win a big majority, because what that does is it gives individual members much more power. So if you're a Speaker of the House and you have a 20-seat advantage, it's not that big a deal. You can afford to lose a few. You can't when you only have a 5-seat majority.
Okay. He's just in it for himself.
It seems to be. Yeah, it's sad, but that's politics.
Now, I know there are a couple that you feel like were pretty solid.
Principled. Well, I think they were principled in their reasoning. You've got Andy Biggs out of Arizona, Eli Crane out of Arizona. Must be something in the water down there. But Tim Burchett, also of Tennessee, Bob Good of Virginia. And then the last person is actually the only female member of the gang, the gangstas.
Lucky her.
Nancy Mace out of South Carolina. She, in her recent run for Congress, was a huge supporter of Kevin McCarthy. And Kevin McCarthy paid her back by putting millions into her election campaign, of which she did win. And, kind of, what are we, 9 months later?
She stabbed him in the back.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say she stabbed him in the back.
There are a lot of Republicans that are very upset with Nancy Mace in that regard. I've got her on other issues that I don't like her stances on, but this, it's whether all of a sudden she became principled or what, I don't know.
Okay, so McCarthy is out, and
he is out. Yeah. So, we're at a point where either the Republicans are shooting themselves in the foot, or they're taking a principled stand, depending on what side you come down on. Yeah.
I have a third side.
Okay.
The Republicans need, I'm just saying, if you're listening, you need to get your shit together. Y'all need to get your shit together, Republicans, because the Democrats, what is that phrase you like to say? Democrats fall in love.
Where Republicans fall in line, Democrats fall in love.
But Republicans are not falling in line here. They're not. They're a hot mess.
That's actually more related to actual presidential succession.
I don't care. It's a hot mess. So, and the Democrats are thrilled about this because it completely changes the narrative. For weeks, everybody was talking about that Joe Biden was too old to run again, too senile, too sick. People were talking about how bad the economy it still is. They were talking about how bad the border was, it still is. But now everybody's talking about this brouhaha or hullabaloo in the Republican Party. So, I mean, I think they only have themselves to blame.
Well, first off, let me commend you, because usually you're Miss Potty Mouth, and you used actually quite nice terms there.
Brouhaha and hullabaloo.
Yeah. I'm shocked. But let me say this about that.
Okay.
Yeah, those things are now off the front page. Now, with this whole thing going on in the Middle East, they'd have been off the front page anyway. That was just kind of a side note. But
Right.
those issues are still going to be there when this gets resolved. And there's still a long way till the election. No question about that. Joe Biden is not going to become
younger,
not younger,
Sorry.
not more mentally acute or
healthier.
aware. Yes.
Yeah,
the border is still going to be a
what?
Shit show.
Hot mess.
Hot mess. Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. The economy, I think it's going to be even worse. So,
yes.
So there is, it's not like we're, oh my gosh, all these issues are off the table forever. They're not.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and with Democrats, they always have the media come in and save them from themselves. They're not going to do that for Republicans.
Oh,
not going to happen.
No. And what I found fascinating about this when we first started talking about it earlier this week was, I know that in the U.S., it's president, vice president, and then Speaker of the House. That's why this position is so important. But I'm not sure that I knew beyond that. And for our international viewers and listeners who may not be up on some of the nuances of our political system, or other Americans like me who may not know beyond Speaker of the House, would you explain to us how our presidential succession works? I just mentioned Speaker of the House is very important because that person is third in line. But can you walk us through right now,
Right.
today and present time? So,
well, technically he's second. That person is second in line.
That's right.
You got the vice president first. You've got the Speaker of the House second. However, that was not always the case.
All right.
It wasn't. Back in all the way up until about 1866, there was a change up there. Are you ready for maybe a little quiz?
I love quizzes, especially when I have no idea what's going on or what it's about. But sure, let's go ahead.
Yeah. Well, let's do this.
Okay,
so we've got, what can you name?
Vice President, that would be Kamala Harris, Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
Speaker of the House, currently vacant.
But it will be a Republican.
Yes. I don't know who's next.
The next is actually the President pro tem of the Senate.
Okay.
And back before 1886, that person was actually up ahead of the Speaker of the House. And the President pro tem is basically not the Senate majority leader, but they're the person that takes over any logistical issues and whatnot when the vice president cannot preside over the Senate, because the vice president presides over the Senate.
Got it. Okay.
On all voting and things like that. The President pro tem has always been the senator with the most seniority through history. That has been the President pro tem of the Senate until the current one. And that the current one is Patty Murray out of Washington, I believe, Washington State. And she jumped ahead of, I don't know who it was, but the reason for that is,
I don't know.
She's a woman. So the first woman, how Democrats have to have the first this, the first that.
Okay. Got it. Sorry.
I think she's the first woman with gray hair, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh my God.
So we can put all that stuff in there. So yeah.
So that's elected position, President pro or
yeah, I mean it is. Yeah, it's.
Or given,
I'm not sure if there's an actual election in the Senate for that, but yeah, it's a designation that is usually for the most senior, but they broke the rules.
Okay, so who would be next in line after Patty Murray?
After that, Secretary of State.
Oh, so that is a very important position.
That's Antony Blinken. Now, if y'all remember, people that are old enough, when Reagan was shot in 1981, and
I was a small child. Go ahead.
I was a big baby. Actually, Alexander Haig was the Secretary of State at the time, and he went on television and said, "I am in charge here." You're not, which caused a huge brouhaha.
Oh, going back
yeah. And then he
backwards.
tried to back it up saying, well, I'm just here in the White House right now. There's nobody else here, so I'm in charge. No, it's still not the way it works. But yeah, so Al Haig, rest his soul.
All right. So who is next under?
We got Secretary of State.
Right.
Right. Then, so after those are kind of the most.
So this is why the cabinet positions are very important.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is
the
really
president's
fascinating to me.
cabinet fills out the rest of the line of succession, starting with the Secretary of the Treasury, which is Janet Yellen.
Was that your?
That's a pretty spot on
impersonation.
Yeah. To have Janet Yellen in line for the presidency.
Okay.
Good Lord have
Who's
mercy.
after this?
Then we go to defense, which is right now Lloyd Austin, I believe, for a bit longer. I think he's retiring.
Okay.
And then, God, thank goodness this person will never see the light of day on this. It's the Attorney General.
Merrick Garland.
Merrick Garland.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Then what do we go to after that? Do you know?
I don't know without cheating.
All right, let's go. Okay, no cheating allowed. Then you've got the Secretary of the Interior, the Secretary of Agriculture, the Secretary of Commerce, the Secretary of Labor, Health and Human Services.
Okay.
Housing and Urban Development, which is HUD. Yeah.
Okay.
And then way down there is the Secretary of Transportation. Who is that?
I do know who that is without cheating. That's Pete Buttigieg.
Pete Buttigieg, who's doing just a
bang up job. Yeah,
right? Let's hope the 12 people in front of him stay very, very healthy.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. And then who else?
And we get in now. Yeah, now we're down to the bottom of the bowl here. We're getting Secretary of Energy Jennifer Granholm, former governor of Michigan. The Secretary of Education, which is Miguel Cardona from California.
Now, why are you giving all these other people their names? I mean, you just went on by the others. It's because they're Democrats.
Eyes are glazing over.
Okay, all right, yeah, all right. Secretary of
Education, and then as we get down to the final couple, you've got the Secretary of Veterans Affairs.
Okay,
and finally, which is probably the newest addition to this, since this post only came about in 2001, is the Secretary of Homeland Security. So
okay. Imagine
Alejandro Mayorkas being the president. He lies enough for Joe Biden. He could lie for himself, I guess. But what's interesting though is there was actually a TV show on maybe a few years ago, 2016, I think, ran for a few seasons, called Designated Survivor. And it starred a guy named Kiefer Sutherland, who's a big television star here. He was portraying the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, HUD. And the premise of the show was that during the State of the Union speech, when every politician is in attendance, there has to be one cabinet member that stays away in a secure location in case.
And that's true, happens. Right?
Yeah,
that's true.
Absolutely true. The premise of the show was true based on that. In the show, there was, I think, a nuclear attack during the State of the Union. He was thrust into that role as president. So to go from HUD to president, it can lead
after everybody else has died.
Yeah, it can lead to some interesting stuff. Now, got to tell the audience here that in full disclosure mode, this beautiful woman here sitting next to me, Andrea, was an actress in Hollywood for many, many years.
I was.
And Kiefer's huge breakout show was a show called 24, back, 15 years ago or so?
2001.
2001, okay.
Yep.
And he starred as Jack Bauer, this badass, and with a counterterrorism team. Andrea was actually on the show with him for a couple of seasons, right?
I was on the show for seasons 2 and 3 and got to know Kiefer really well.
Good.
Oh, and once again, the ear thing falls out. It's like every show.
You have small ears.
I do actually have small ears. Okay. Yeah. What were you saying about? Oh, so yeah, Kiefer. Great guy.
Good.
I have nothing but good things to say about Kiefer.
All right. Shout out to Kiefer.
Although I never did see Designated Survivor.
Oops.
So
sorry.
Didn't see it. Yeah.
Maybe that's why it lasted 3 seasons.
Yeah, it's all because of me, because I didn't watch the show.
Yep.
So let's get back to where we started.
Okay.
Who the heck is going to be the next Speaker of the House?
Well, it's going to be a 2-person race.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be between Steve Scalise and Jim Jordan. Steve Scalise is from Louisiana, Jim Jordan from Ohio. Scalise is currently the House Majority Leader, which is the position directly under Speaker of the House.
So the logical choice.
Let's move them up as, like the Pez dispenser, right? You get rid of one, here's another one.
It's a great analogy.
Yeah, put the head back, here comes another one. Yeah. So,
but There's a big but with Steve Scalise.
Well, Scalise, if people know him, unfortunately, he was the person that was most injured in the congressional baseball practice when that Bernie Sanders supporter came with a rifle and started shooting up the field. He went through tremendous rehab to get back and whatnot. A truly great story. So he is also, unfortunately, fighting a form of blood cancer right now. So, obviously we wish him and his family well with that.
So he might not be he's the logical choice, but might not be the obvious choice because of his current health situation.
I would say that should certainly play into it. He's, you got to have your health,
right?
No matter how much power, if you don't have your health.
So who's next?
That would be Jim Jordan. I'm a big fan of Jim Jordan, I have to admit. He is the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee right now. He is one of the people that is leading the impeachment inquiry into Joe Biden. To me, he is a true conservative and not afraid to say so. The only downside I have with Jim Jordan is he speaks very quickly. He's just boom,
That's
boom, boom.
your downside?
He can knock out the facts so fast. But, it's funny because Jim Jordan, if we talked earlier about the House Freedom Caucus was the group that basically kicked Kevin McCarthy out. Jim Jordan was actually one of the founding members of the Freedom Caucus. I think it had 8 members when it first started. There's that 8 again, another gang of 8.
Did that kind of replace the Tea Party?
Tea Party, yeah. Tea Party kind of fizzled out, and we went straight with the Freedom Caucus. Been going strong ever since. So,
okay,
yeah.
And I've heard that there's been an endorsement of Jim Jordan besides yours.
Well, there was another person that was mentioned and actually was brought to the floor, and that was
it was brought to the floor.
Yes, that in a move that former President Donald John Trump should become Speaker of the House.
Now he has endorsed Jim Jordan.
He has, yes. At first, I think
that was my leading question.
I think Trump kind of teased a little bit that I could do that. Now, how many indictments is he facing right now?
I don't know, but what I found interesting about this is that you don't have to be a member of the House to become the Speaker of the House.
That is correct.
Okay, what the fuck?
Yeah, the Constitution of the United States said the House shall select their leader. That's it. The one line, boom.
That's it. So there's
could be anybody.
Could be anybody.
Yeah.
But it is most likely going to be either Jim Jordan or Steve Scalise.
Yeah. Trump has thrown his weight behind Jim Jordan on this, so we will see how this plays out. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Before we get to our last segment, I just want to apologize to our viewers that we just keep stumbling when we go live. So next week, we're not even going to do the countdown. We'll just go live. And we can see your messages on YouTube and Facebook. I thought we could see the messages from LinkedIn. So if you're watching this in real time and you want to give us a shout out, please let us know because we will respond to your comment, feature your comment. And it's okay if you don't agree with us. That's totally fine. So we have one more segment to go. And this is Edward's segment where I don't know ahead of time what it's going to be about. He gives me a little hint, but I actually don't know the details. So let me tee it up for you, Edward. We've got our segment, This Week in Woke. So what's going on this week in Woke?
Well, last week we were in the city of brotherly love.
That's right, Philadelphia.
We're going completely different. We're going to Sin City.
Ooh,
oh yeah, we're
that's
going
where
to
I had
Vegas.
my 50th birthday party.
Going to Vegas. You did. You did. I heard all about it.
Yes, he was not invited.
Now, a shout out, a hat tip to the College Fix, which is a great website that shows ridiculousness on college campuses.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. So we should put a link to them in the show notes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So basically, the whole gist of this story is you can no longer use the word picnic.
Wait, like picnic, you go outside, you eat, there are ants?
Yeah, ants, bugs, whatnot.
Okay.
Yes.
Please tell us why.
Well, let me give you the news brief here.
Please help me out.
A scheduled picnic sponsored by the University of Nevada, Las Vegas Law School's Environmental Law Society has been renamed Lunch by the Lake due to diversity and inclusion concerns. Now, according to a memo obtained by the Libs of TikTok, God bless them, they are doing the Lord's work.
Maybe we'll put a link in the show notes as well.
The law group informed members that the word picnic has historical and offensive connotations and apologized for any harm or discomforts caused by its use.
Really?
Mhm.
Are you serious?
Yeah, this goes back to what they're concerned about with slavery, that I think somebody had a sandwich when somebody was being lynched back in the day, obviously.
Let's go back to the origins of the word picnic. And by the way, our
Yeah.
cat's going to be joining the show. We apologize for any noise she's making in the background. So,
Yeah, picnic, originally a 17th century French word, pique-nique.
picnic.
And the meaning is very similar to today's, and it's a social gathering where attendees bring a share of the food. The French piqûre may have referred to a leisurely style of eating, like
Pick at
picking at your
food.
food. Yes,
Okay.
picnic.
I like it.
So, this has nothing to do with lynching. I mean, even a guy named David Pilgrim, which I love the guy's last name, he is the curator of the Jim Crow Museum of Racist Memorabilia.
I
That's
cannot
actually a
believe
thing.
that's a place,
That's
and
a
we're
thing.
not going to put
Yeah.
that link in the show notes.
He said it's possible someone used the word picnic to refer to lynchings, but we know for a fact that is not where the word picnic came from. So, really, I mean, for me, so now every word in the English language cannot be used if someone anywhere in the world may have used it when slavery may have been present. I mean, really?
Okay. Is there more to this?
Well, I've looked a little further in the announcement, and
Okay.
they had a little section on carpooling, and it said, if you're looking for a ride or offering one, we're including a carpooling section on the sign up sheet.
Okay, what's wrong with that?
Sign up sheet?
Yes.
Really?
What is
Those
it?
bastards. Honey, KKK, hello.
Oh, okay.
They were sheets.
This is you extrapolating, right?
I am.
This is not what was actually.
I mean,
okay.
How far do we want to take this,
Okay,
right?
keep
I
going.
mean, how can any good leftist wannabe lawyer be involved in anything that involves sheets?
That is sheets,
So,
even though we all sleep on them. But continue.
yeah, well, I mean, so what are we going to say now? Maybe they should have used a sign-up paper instead. Well, wait, back when slaves were sold, they actually wrote their names down on paper. So I can't use the word paper. So, basically what I'm saying, people, grow a spine, for crying out loud. Stop the nonsense. And before you start sending us, hateful comments, actually, hateful comments are welcome here because
We'll take any comments because
we
it means you're
believe
watching and listening.
in free speech.
We do, yes.
Yeah, before you get all worked up, just remember, we fought a civil war 158 years ago to abolish slavery in this country. And all those Jim Crow laws that the South used against blacks from the end of the Civil War through the 1960s were brought to you by the Southern Democrats. So you have them to thank for it. That is the end of my rant. Thank
you sure? Because that was quite the rant.
Yes, now I'm done.
Yeah, I do think that that's a good point, that people forget that the Democratic Party was the party of slavery. It was the Southern Democrats.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think people sort of forget that. And it's not that parties can't change and people can't change. But you touched on something else and our cat is crawling through the microphone. I just have to share with people who are listening and can't see this. And we'll do our best to cut out the noise, but she's insisting on being part of the show. So she's registered. She's a registered independent like me.
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to say, to go with your rant, that the reason we're doing the show, in addition to the fact that we love working together and have fun, is because we do believe in free speech. And I was sad when I saw how many relationships absolutely fell apart when Trump was elected. And I'm talking about marriages, I'm talking about friendships, I'm talking about families who stopped speaking to other family members. And I don't understand that. I have very strong views. A lot of my views are very different from Edward's. And it was something that we addressed on our very first date, which go back to season 1. I forget which episode. We talked about that moment for me when I realized that who he was or who he is as a person is more important to me than what his views are. And so the show is about encouraging free speech, banning censorship. We don't expect that you're going to agree with us all the time, and we hope you don't. We really do. And then I want to address one more sort of tech thing, is that I was convinced we would be able to see your comments today. So if you did comment in real time, I apologize. Supposedly we can see YouTube and Facebook. I'm not so sure about LinkedIn. So we are working on it. Be patient with us. Anything else before I wrap up our close here, Edward? Anything else to add?
Well, I actually do the show, and I'll continue to do the show until everybody in the country agrees with me. So,
oh my God, see
where I'm going.
Yeah, I can just punch him right now. I'm just gonna punch him. Yeah, I sincerely believed. I won't go into why, but tomorrow's a very special day for me, like a special day of the year, and it's a good reminder for me that I feel like we have so much more in common as people than we do differences. And so I would just remind all of you to just take a breath and remember that you don't have to agree with the other person and you don't have to sway them to your side. You can just agree to disagree. It sounds kind of simple.
Just be nice
Be
to somebody.
nice.
Treat them how you would want to be treated. Depending on your views, it doesn't matter. I mean,
Well,
really,
I disagree with you on treat them how you'd want to be treated, but that's for another show.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So thank you for joining us today and for dealing with our weird technical difficulties. Please follow us on all social media platforms. We're either My Favorite Conservative or on the Twitter. Is it the Twitter or X, whatever?
Twitter X.
We're MyFavCom. And please join us live on most Sundays, especially next Sunday. We will be here at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you are listening to the podcast, which drops the next day on Mondays, please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast. It's available wherever you're listening right now. You can support our show by joining our locals community as soon as Rumble syncs our YouTube channel. So Rumble, if you're out there, please sync our YouTube channel so we can create our locals community and invite everybody in to disagree with each other. Learn more, follow us on myfavoriteconservative.show. That's myfavoriteconservative.show. And we hope to see you next Sunday live at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Thanks for joining us.
Take care. Bye-bye.